Welcome to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling, the ESPN for all things comedy, with your hosts, Mark Riccadonna and Richie Byrne. And now, grab a drink and welcome Mark Riccadonna and Richie Byrne.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling. I'm with me, as always, Richie Byrne, and your host,
Mark Riccadonna.
See what I did?
I did. I saw it. Richie taking lead, switching it up.
You usually open it. You say, I'm your host, Mark Riccadonna. With me, as always, Richie Byrne. So I said, I'm with me, as always, Richie Byrne.
I like it, Richie. I think you should start us off all the time.
No, you're so good at it.
I get anxiety the whole opening song.
Oh, good. I thought it was me. Dude, I'm a complete mess right now. I'm done. I think I'm done. I think I need a nap.
I love it. How you doing? I'm good, man.
Are you ever going to take a break? You are the busiest man on the planet.
I believe when it slows down, it'll slow way down, and I'll become depressed. We just finished that one act festival at Theater 68.
Talk about that. How'd it go?
I got to tell you, it was funny because you forget how you fall into a routine of theater and understand it. Dress rehearsal, I was scared to death. We were not ready to go up in front of an audience, and I was freaking out. And then somehow, magically, Thursday came, and everything went great. And then by the time the Saturday late show was, I was like, "We're ready to start doing this in front of an audience."
It's nothing like a dress rehearsal in front of an audience.
I had so much fun. Kidding.
I mean, that's great. You're just crazy right now. You're doing movies. You're just all over the map.
Next week we start. I'm so excited. Tomorrow we have we're going into the space and going to rehearse with the actors in the actual space we're shooting. So next week's going to be really busy. I'm excited.
What are you shooting next week? What? Tell them what show.
It's called Open Doors. A friend of mine, Raven, wrote it, and she has the two actors who are actually playing the two main characters are a married couple. So it's in real life they're married, and then in the movie it's the first time they meet.
Kind of like you and me.
Yeah, we're the first time we met, but on the show we're married.
Well, that's great, man. I mean, we got so many things going on. You and I both at the same time, without talking to each other, which I thought was really weird. We're like, I want to get back into theater more. I want to get back into, and we're doing it. We're doing, we're together on some projects. We're not starting our own theater group, but we're joining forces with another group, and we're going to start doing readings and things like that. And I'm really excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. Starting in April, we're gonna have to start pushing that because we need people to come and support it. And it's in Manhattan, so you can't go wrong. Hey, buddy.
There's my little guy home from school. How you doing? Two thumbs up. You better go blow your nose.
I think it's funny. I tell Mark all the time that his kids. Couple more years, his kids are going to be more mature than he is.
We might have hit the point. He wants to be on the show.
Yeah. Hey, what's up? How are you?
Hey.
Hi. How are your teeth?
Oh, you're right.
Oh,
wants to know how your teeth are.
How you feeling?
Good.
All right. I heard you got some back teeth issues.
Teeth hurting in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's as good as an interview as me.
Yeah, this is great. This is riveting.
All right, buddy. Go in the other room, play with Legos.
What's better, bro?
All right, let's get to the show. I'm sorry.
Here. We have well, let's bring out Vicky first, our old pal Vicky Plummer. Come on out, Vicky, as always. Hi, Vicky.
Hey. Oh, your son is so cute. You're like, how are your teeth? He's like, good.
Yeah.
Good.
He's so cute.
He's got this voice.
Yeah.
You know, always look stoned when you talk to him. Like every time his kids have the same thing. They're like, hey.
Yeah, he's so cute. He just came
bro?
out, he looked like he had like bedhead and he didn't feel that well. And he's just like, hey guys, what's up? So adorable.
It's in the DNA. It's in the DNA.
It is in the DNA. So cute.
All right.
I feel bad that he doesn't feel well.
How are you, Vicky?
I'm doing well. I love that you guys are doing theater and that you're gonna have a reading, like doing readings. I wanna come and support.
And that's the other thing is that in the middle of all this, we met Vicky, who has a background in theater, and she was like, "Dudes, let's do this." So like, it's just been a weird kismet of all of us getting together. And I think
if you need like a chubby redhead who makes crazy faces.
Hey, that's me, baby.
Okay, if you need a female chubby redhead.
Hey, that's me, baby.
That's
okay,
Richie.
That's right. That's right. You like that setup? Look, I just gave it right to you.
Well, speaking of theater, we're doing a theater themed show today. We have the director of a theater in Staten Island called Ghostlight Players, and he's also had an immense career as a lawyer. He ran TKTS in the city. We could talk about that. And he's one of my oldest friends in the world, and I love him to death. And let's get him out. Give it up for Charlie Sullivan.
Charlie.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing
Good
great.
to have you.
I want to go play Legos.
I know.
I
Right?
know. Show them what you made.
Nice.
Some little guy with guns on his shoulders.
It's an axolotl.
It's an axolotl.
Nice.
What is an axolotl?
It's some sort of lizard that is from Mexico, but it looks like a guy.
Okay.
Looks like a dude with a blue face.
Scary guy.
Or like a space cat.
It says sing that go underwater.
Underwater. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
All
understand.
right.
Because I understand Mark at 2 a.m. when we're sitting in the comic strip.
That was me 2 days ago.
Don't you love kids who are like in elementary school when they're learning to pronounce R's and they're like on the waddle? I love that. He's on the waddle. It's so cute.
Some adults who still talk like that.
Yeah, true.
My buddy Jack, we make fun of him because he says squirrel and like owl, and it kills me. Hey, there's a squirrel in a tree. So a few years ago,
He never went to speech therapy, right?
a few years ago, he had to get his ears checked for work. So he goes into the room, and the woman says to him, "Okay, I'm going to give you words, and I want you to repeat them." And the first word was squirrel.
No.
She goes, "Say squirrel," and he goes, "Ha!" Starts laughing. And it turned out that he's partially deaf. He's got that. So in he heard squirrel. That's what he heard.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, except that he still says it. I'm like, I don't think.
Well, now it's his thing.
It's an affectation. Yeah.
One day I drove by. I was driving down the street, and I came to an intersection of two streets, and it was Squirrel Lane and Owl Lane. And I took a picture. I'm like, dude, you have to live here.
Can you imagine?
What a squirrel and owl.
Oh my God. That would be horrendous. That poor guy. He'd be like, what's your address? 224 Squirrel Owl Lane.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what he's saying. All right, so let's start with the drinks. What's everybody drinking today? What do we got going on? Charlie? What do you got?
Just club soda. I got 3 rehearsals today.
Wow.
Like, I gotta get through it.
Yeah.
I would need extra for that.
How about you, Vicky?
I've got orange juice with a little mix of polar orange vanilla seltzer, which is really good.
The show,
Nice.
Mark, I'm very disappointed. When we used to do the show in the beginning, we'd be drunk doing the show. Now,
We'd be drunk by the time the guests came out.
we used to do the show just audio for the first few years at the comic because they had the studio, Vicky, right?
Yeah.
And we would do 6-7 shows a day to get out of the way. And
By the 5th show.
so we would have comics coming on, and by like the 5th show, Mark and I like, so how's everybody doing? This drink. We couldn't even. We're like, we got to start drinking.
We had 2 episodes that we just canned because we were incoherent.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
We're all like, what's the guest name? What?
What are you drinking, Mark?
This is a little. Here you go. This is a throwback for the old days. This is an iced coffee.
Wow.
From the diner across the street from the comic strip, because I was so hammered last night at the comic strip that I went and got food and stuff to take on the train ride home, and I didn't get to the coffee, so I walked in the house and was like, oh, I'll put it in the fridge and save it for tomorrow.
He didn't get to the coffee. He only had a 2-hour ride in the train, but he couldn't.
Let's just say I don't remember a lot of the train ride home.
I'm the only one. I'm drinking Absolute on the Rocks.
Nice.
Which I've used this glass before. This is my Jenna and Jimmy glass. Jenna Esposito and Jimmy Cano got married, 6 years ago. And this was one of the gifts for their wedding. Jenna, Jimmy, guys, Mark knows.
Yeah.
And Jimmy actually was one of the first people to contact COVID 2 years ago.
Oh, I remember.
And was on a respirator and almost died. And we brought him on to Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling from his hospital bed. People saw, and he ended up doing other
Dr. Phil.
Other shows, yeah, like he
was getting TV credits from this.
Nobody gave a shit about us, but But I saw him the other night. Jenna ran a great variety show at the Friars Club on Thursday night, and she had like a 8-piece band, and she had me and Steven Scott, Mark, who bring on the show. Steven was great because Steven does all the sounds with his mouth. And he did a whole thing with the band that was great. She had an accordion player who was like the Jimi Hendrix of accordion players. This guy, he was playing with his teeth. He put it behind his. I was like,
oh my God,
this guy's amazing.
I wonder
if great show. They're doing it once a month at the Friars, and it's like a variety. They have music and comedy, and it was so good. I highly recommend trying to go see one. It was really great, and I love Jenna. Her dad's the musical director, so he's an amazing. Yeah, so that's my Absolute on the Rocks. Someone has to drink today.
Someone's gonna do it.
So Charlie, Ghost Night Players.
That's us.
Staten Island.
Yep.
A town I know well.
Oh yes, you do.
I recently saw some guys. They're doing some great productions. I mean, really. I just saw The Man Who Came to Dinner, starring Charlie.
That was
nice.
It's always we call that a riccadonna in the business, where you set up your own company and then star yourself.
Nobody wants to hire me. I got to figure out a way.
You were great. And a few years ago, they did 1776, and I went to see it on July 4th.
Yeah. And
Charlie played Ben Franklin. He was phenomenal. It was such a great production. And I saw 12 Angry Men.
That's right. Yeah.
You guys have been killing it over there.
It was 11 angry, and one was just kind of miffed.
He was sulky.
Yeah, he was
just mad he had jury duty.
Well, they didn't have that in common.
Given the way things are now, you're not allowed to like have Felix be angry. But the new version is going to be like 12 men who don't get along well.
Right.
Well, actually, it's 12 angry people. I think
people.
There is a version.
Yeah.
I think it was on Broadway, wasn't it? I mean, I remember. I mean, and that.
12 Angry Jurors. That's what it is.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Oh, that sounds better. I was gonna say if it's 12 angry people, it's like they're just really shoving PC in your face. Who identify as male.
12
today.
12 rural jurors.
Rural jurors.
So tell us about the theater. What made you start it?
Well, I mean, once I retired from being a lawyer, or sort of in the midst of retiring from being a lawyer, I started doing theater back here on Staten Island again because I was living here full time and B had a little more time. I really didn't do anything major until after I retired fully because being a lawyer just took too much time. And you know, you never know when you couldn't make rehearsals because something happened. So I started doing theater here. I was having a great time, did a lot of fun stuff, but there was a large number of things that no one was doing, no shows that people really wanted to do and no one was doing. 1776 is a very good example. I don't think it was, I think it was done once in community theater, but not by any of the groups that we knew, Richie, you and I. It was a so that was a group that it was only ever done in college. So we said, well, that's something we'd like to do. 12 Angry Men was another one that nobody was touching at the time. And plays that just didn't get done for one reason or another. We did 5 Women Wearing the Same Dress, which is a really funny Alan Ball comedy that I don't think ever made it to Broadway, but is done in a lot of places. It was never done here. So we were looking for things that the community wanted to do. And also our idea was to kind of make it the sort of community theater that Richie and I grew up with, which, civic theater. They had theaters that were devoted to doing a mixture of plays and musicals, and typically that's more divided. You have groups that do musicals, you have groups that do plays, and never the twain shall meet. So we wanted to do it like that and build up a repertory of people who just love to do theater and form a community.
Yeah.
And also people of very different experience levels, age levels. We've had people who were on Broadway, people who were in tours, and people for whom this was their first play they were ever in. And one guy who was 70, and it was the first time he was ever on stage.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That is awesome.
He was in 12 Angry Men. Yeah.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Now
we had when we did 1776, we had someone celebrate their 75th birthday and another person celebrate their 15th birthday.
Yes.
One guy who remembers when it happened, and one guy.
And Charlie, you have a unique experience, I think, in theater. And
with you or just in general?
Well, every moment you've had in theater with me is unique, but but you got to be in a play with your dad, who had never done a play before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, talk about that.
Right. I mean, I think he had been in a play in grammar school or something, but he loved the theater. I mean, both my parents are big theater buffs. They would go to plays all the time. When just before I was born, they went to see Threepenny Opera, and my mother said that she had the music from Lottie Lenya singing in her head as she was going to the delivery room. So he always loved theater, and he was a cop. He was also a lawyer. He was just taught law. But he always loved the idea of theater, and they were doing Detective Story at Civic Theater, which is local theater near here. And Jennifer Stranier, the late great Jennifer Stranier, got him to donate a whole bunch of police uniforms, and they were desperate for people. It's a huge cast, it's a huge show. So she said, "Do you want to be in it?" And he said, "Sure," and put on a uniform and went in and played a cop. He just had a ball.
And the funny thing is that really never ends. As far as no matter how high a level you get in show business, if you fit the costume, you probably
right for real.
Ain't that the truth?
That's so true. Especially on Broadway, if they've paid like, $10,000 to create costumes and they're like, we need somebody a size 8. They're gonna cast somebody a size 8,
Hey, Chris, how are you? So Charlie, why Ghostlight? Where did you guys come up with Ghostlight?
Well, honestly, we were going through names to try and come up with something, and we were going through everything and sitting around drinking, trying to come up with a name, and just kind of hit us. I mean, the ghost light, as you guys all know, is the light that you put on the stage after the show goes out. So it's an old tradition, and it keeps one light going on the stage when no one else is there. And it was sort of evocative of the idea that theater keeps going no matter what. So that kind of was the inspiration for it, and also the name was available.
That helped.
And it fit the costume. It
definitely fit the costume. Yeah, exactly.
So this, and I'm not at all taking a jab. I'm from Ohio, so trust me, I can't make fun of anything where people are. But what made you decide to retire, go to Staten Island to start a theater group? Because,
well, I mean, I live in the house that I was born into.
Oh, okay.
And I moved, when I was lawyering, I had an apartment in Manhattan, but I bought this house for my parents, so I still was here. And then later in life, as my parents got old, they wanted to get old at home and die at home. So I commuted back and forth, and I was sort of the primary caregiver. I was actually working from home 10 years before that was an idea, as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I had transitioned to being a general counsel of a consulting company, and we kept selling ourselves and getting bigger. And as it turned out, nobody was in the office anyway, because all the consultants were always out all over the world. So, and the general counsel was in Chicago, so he didn't care. So I was able to stay here on Staten Island, take care of my parents as they aged into death, and had a lovely time. But it also meant that I could, and it's actually a great idea for lawyers. Like, I was dealing with Japan and Russia and South America, so I would take calls at 3 or 4 in the morning, which was their time, was perfect for them. And then I could just do what I needed to do during the day and not work so much. So it actually worked out great for me. So I was here, and in the process, I mean, when you're on Staten Island enough, you kind of, like, I live in the neighborhood I grew up in, so I see people in the grocery store that I went to. You
live in the neighborhood I grew up in.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which gets a lot of strings pulled for you.
That's right. Well, it's just it's just sort of familiar, and I keep walking into David Johansen at the grocery store.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives on Beeman Avenue with his wife, and
the singer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
He started his career in Carl Lesch's choir at St. Peter's Boys High School.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That's
and then
so awesome.
my late across the street neighbor, Mick Rock, was the guy who photographed Bowie's cover albums and the Sex Pistols. And,
wow.
Yeah. And we would actually always I would catch when I was going to Manhattan, inevitably, if I was late, he was taking a taxi. We would cross the street, so we would taxi together. But that's just Staten Island. It's a lot of
That's awesome.
Everything's very familiar. And I see people that I went to grammar school with, and high school with, and college with, and so it felt comfortable. And the other thing about Staten Island is it has a great and diverse acting community, because you have a lot of people who either are aspiring to be actors but can't afford to live elsewhere, or people who were actors for a while and decided not to do it anymore, or were actors and got frustrated, or directors, or whatever. And you have 2 schools that have pretty good theater programs, the CSI and Wagner College.
Yes.
So they throw off a lot of people who are interested in theater and frustrated that they're not getting on Broadway. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about going to school, I went to Wagner, and one of the great things about that I learned actually from students who came from other states was you have New York right there, man. You can go audition all the time. And it hit me. I go, oh, that's true. Like, growing up here, it didn't dawn on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the other people come in and go, hey, I'm going to an audition. I'm like, you can do that? And back then, that was the day That was the days of Backstage. Every Thursday, Backstage would come out, and in the back they had all of the auditions that were going to go on for the week. That was such a cool process, you know. And you know, and you just jump on the ferry and you go in.
Well, that's like, I mean, you know, like the Long Island guys all talk about how many great comedians come out of Long Island. And it's like, yeah, because you're in striking distance of the city. So you can still have your home life and do your normal thing, but you're striking distance to New York City. So you can get that done. You can do this, but still have a life. Where it's like a lot of these people, like I'm from Ohio, but even further out, like you get somebody from Nebraska who wants to follow their dream. But now they live so far away from their family and their support system, and so it's like it's a really cool advantage to look at like North Jersey, Staten Island, Long Island. There is a great advantage to.
One of the, I mean, I think it's why. I mean, one of the coolest stories I ever heard was James Gandolfini told a story that his dad, either his dad was owned a tire company, or Travolta's dad, but one of them, the dad used to buy tires from the other. You know what I mean? Like Travolta's dad would buy tires from Gandolfini's father. I thought that was so cool. You know that they lived that close together, and but again, that it gives you the ability to get into the city, you know, to be around.
Yeah,
that's and I feel like Staten Island gets like such a bad rep. There's such a bad rap for and there's so much going on, and that's why I wanted to bring Charlie on to talk about the theater, because it really has some cool bars down on Bay Street where you can go, and I know people who do like spoken word nights and things like that.
Right.
You know, you're right by the ferry. You jump on the ferry. Mark, you'll love this. When I first started doing comedy, I worked at a bar on Bay Street right off of where the ferry is, not far, called Charlie Harbor Lights. You remember Harbor Lights?
Oh, yeah.
And I was a bartender there, and I started running a comedy night on Thursday nights. And because it was Staten Island, I had like 150 people showing up every week for this. And here's the best part, Mark, because it wasn't in the city, it was pretty much an open mic. But because it wasn't in Manhattan, nobody was coming out unless they knew they were getting on. So I could actually bring comics that you knew were good, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to deal with the guy showing up going, "Can I get on?" And you knew he was terrible. And I had some really great comics. J.R. Havlin, who went on to write for The Daily Show, came out, and I'm trying to think who. I mean, just all these great comics. And the funny thing is, they'd all get on the ferry, and we'd pick them up. They'd get in a car. We'd drive over to Harbor Lights. They'd do the show. We'd drive them back to the ferry, and they went home. It was like the coolest little show, you know? So,
you know, it's taking a boat to work makes it feel like it's so much more difficult and crazy. Yeah. But I remember as a you know, young broke theater student, if I had a date and I wanted to really impress her, you know, because she was from out of town or whatever, we go to the Staten Island Ferry, get a couple brown bags of beer, and watch the sunset over Manhattan from the boat. That's
right.
It's true. When I first moved here, I moved here in '99, and so I love all the stuff that you guys are saying. I went to school, musical theater, you know, degree at University of New Hampshire, and it seemed so far away to New York to audition, to, you know, it was like a big deal. And so when I moved here, after touring and all that kind of stuff, my only experience with Staten Island was riding the ferry for free, you know, and you got to see the Statue of Liberty right there. But then I got to be an extra in School of Rock, and they filmed
the St. George.
Yeah, and I remember, I don't know if you guys might remember this, but they posted in a lot of the comedy clubs that they were looking for extras, and that's how I got the part. I had to go out to Staten Island once. I think it might have been Wagner. It was one of the colleges, but
it was Wagner College. We had to go and fill out paperwork and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then we filmed for 2 days, and it was awesome. And Jack Black was like the nicest person.
He talked to everybody. He was so nice. He kept singing Jesus Christ Superstar, and the guy can sing. He can sing his face off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was so nice. And I just remember being like, this is so cool. Like I was like, why does everyone hate on Staten Island? This is awesome. And it was one of the most fun like weeks of my life. I had so much fun.
Wagner's a great campus, Vicky, isn't it? It's just,
it was beautiful.
Oh, it's been in so many shows too, as you know.
Yeah,
the college opus. It's like it's sort of like a generic campus, you know.
Yeah,
it placed the film like the go-to place. Like we need a college campus. Go to Wagner.
Yeah, you can see this part of me in the movie, so you know you can see this part.
I was watching an old episode of Sopranos the other day, and they were at a military school, and for AJ, they were thinking of sending, and they were out. It was Wagner College. I was like, oh. So I thought that was cool. Charlie, so you and I actually, Vicky brought up Jesus Christ Superstar, and that's where Charlie and I met.
We did that together. Yeah.
Charlie and I grew up around the corner from each other and didn't know each other at all. And then I was in high school with his sister Carrie, and I knew Carrie, who was tremendously talented. And Carrie was the best because she was an amazing athlete and a great performer. And we'd be rehearsing the play, and Carrie would have basketball practice. And because Carrie and I live close, I'd drive her or she'd drive me home. So after rehearsal, I had to wait for Carrie to get through basketball practice. I'm like, what's with this picture? I'm the one sitting there.
That's I used to be late to rehearsal in high school. I was in the school play because I had to wait for wrestling practice then.
Yeah. So Charlie ended up. My second play I ever did was Jesus Christ Superstar. We did it at a theater, Staten Island Theater, and Charlie was in it.
And where was that theater?
It was at a
South Beach Psychiatric Center.
South Beach Psychiatric Center.
Okay.
So easy commute home for Richie.
He just stayed overnight. It was very simple.
No, I mean I was 15 years old, and Charlie would drive me home every night, and that's how we got to be friends. And Charlie played Punch's pilot and was tremendous.
Nice.
And
why do I have a feeling it's like that the Farrelly Brothers movie where Philip Seymour Hoffman's doing Jesus Christ Superstar, where Richie's like just starts singing the other parts, and they're like, "Hey, that's my part. Just go with it. Just go with it."
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But I remember I was so impressed by Charlie for one reason. He went to Yale. Like that was like the coolest thing in the world. I couldn't believe I was talking to someone who went to Yale. I don't know why, but I was a sophomore in high school. But like Ivy League was such a big deal, and Charlie went to Yale. Matter of fact, I took Charlie. I didn't take him, but he came to see me at Dr. Oz show.
Yeah.
And I introduced him to Oz, who went to Harvard.
I
said, "This is my buddy Charlie. He went to Yale," and to which Oz, of course, said, "I'm sorry."
Then pulled out a switchblade.
And I said to Oz, I just want to let you know, I know other smart people. You know.
That's funny.
So you, Charlie, then you also you ran TKTS for the.
Well, I didn't run it.
You ran the runners.
The runners, yeah. I was in charge. I was in charge of you. You
were in charge of me. You got me the job, which was the coolest job. But talk about that a little.
This was actually the best job for actors in all of New York City because you're a cater waiter. You work at a bar. I worked at Lend a Hand, which this elderly gay couple ran, where they sent you to people's houses to water their plants and stuff. But the best job was TK, the Half Price booth in Times Square. And
I love that place.
That was also back in the day when tickets were still printed. So, there was the computers didn't exist. So the runners had two jobs. One was to keep control of the lines, which was a challenge, especially on matinee days when you had all the little old ladies coming from Long Island, and they would stampede. They'd go wild. We would have to hold barricades up to keep them back because they would be in the street with the traffic coming down. Absolutely out of control. That was the worst. The Wednesday matinees were the worst time. We all had to like go and have a drink after that.
And you know, I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of my favorites was you'd be in charge of the line, but then a Broadway show, say 12:30, they'd call and say, "Hey, we have 100 tickets." So now you had to go pick up the tickets.
A little black bag. It's a little black bag, and they put the tickets in, and you had to bring them back.
But the old ladies would always, because some of the shows were never on the board because they
got cats. You got cats.
You got cats. Where do you go? And like they'd want to follow you to see where you're going.
You got Velveeta.
Yeah. Go ahead, Charlie.
They see you with the bag and know, right? They knew a new show was coming up.
And what was cool about the show? What was cool about the show was
if they knew the direction you were heading.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But
I can just picture it's worse than like when tickets would go on sale, like the Rolling Stones. Tickets go on sale at midnight and you have to buy the ticket. It's worse. You guys have it way worse.
That's
old ladies with their canes.
Yeah, umbrellas were the worst. So we would have the function of both. And by the way, one of the guys who does theater with me now was the box office guy at the Schubert when we were runners, Rich, Mike Million.
Wow.
And we knew each other from then, so we reconnected.
Right, I knew that.
Hilarious. So it was a great job. The best part of the job, though, was that you were with a group of young people who were actors, artists, photographers who needed a job. It was incredibly flexible. People came in and out all the time. And you got to see everything for free because they needed to paper houses, especially during previews. So we would have tickets to, I got to see everything on Broadway and everything off Broadway, which is good and bad in a sense. I mean, there were great tickets and there were wonderful shows, but there were also some horrible shows. So in a sense, you got a real good chance to see the breadth of what professional theater was. You got to see great. I remember going to see Slab Boys at the Robert F. Kennedy Theater off Broadway, which doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
And I thought this is some obscure play about these Scottish kids who make carpets. And I thought this cast is amazing. They were all unknowns. And it was Andrew McCarthy, Val Kilmer, Sean Penn.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable cast. And they were all just on the cusp of becoming famous. And so you get to see something like that. And then you get to see something really, truly dreadful. And you thought, well, some of the stuff I did wasn't so bad after all. It looks pretty good compared to
I hate admitting this, but I miss the days when you took gambles like that and you would just see a title and go, I'm going to check it out. I'm free tonight. And you have a crapshoot. Sometimes it was the craziest, most obscure thing you've ever seen. Sometimes you were blown away. Like, that was amazing. And it was because theater space was affordable. And I feel like now it's like, man, if you're putting something up, you better really put your ducks in a row, because to afford a New York theater now is like, forget it.
Yeah, I think that's the problem in that why so many shows are just being reproduced and reproduced.
Yeah.
Because you have to have the name just to sell the tickets.
Yeah.
You need to make the money. And I feel like we're losing so many great playwrights or whatever who can't get anything produced.
And they're all going to go to Boston and Philadelphia and Cleveland, and they're going to start doing their test runs out there because
Staten Island.
There you go.
There you go.
I think the producers, like, I worked at Broadway.com for 17 years, and I love what you guys just said. You got to see all the shows. That was my favorite part of it, because you got to see all the shows, and good and bad, and some of those things. I think August Osage County was my favorite surprise show, because I had no idea what it was, and then it was 3.5 hours of like amazing, and you're just like, please don't stop. It felt like an hour. It was amazing, but I think producers are just afraid to take chances now because
no one will take a risk.
Expensive, and so they're like, well, let's just do, this.
We're a year away from, we're a year away from the cast of Friends doing Chicago coming this fall.
Well,
we have Pamela Anderson doing Chicago. We don't need that.
That's what I just said. I like, why do we have Pamela Anderson in Chicago? Like, God, it's
no day at the beach.
It's horrifying.
I remember
I feel like in comedy though, that's kind of what's happening now too. Like they're filling comedy, stand-up comedy people with TikTok people, or they're taking actors from like, or not even actors, like reality people from like Real Housewives of New Jersey. They're going on tour as stand-up comics and they're selling out. And I'm like, is this the trend? Is this what's going to happen? You're not going to give chances to like new playwrights or new actors or new stand-ups, and this is what we're going to have? Like recycled crap from TV?
That's why we need our Charlie Sullivans.
That's what I'm saying. This is great that he's producing all these amazing plays, and I feel like we've got to start taking chances again to get people excited about live performances.
One of the plays that he's doing is A Few Good Men, which was written by Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah,
he's a runner with me and Charlie at TKTS back in the 80s, right?
That's
Charlie?
Amazing.
Oh yes, he was. Well, that was
he used to drive you crazy.
He had two roommates. They all worked there together.
Yeah,
Ron Ostro, Darren Freeman, and Aaron Sorkin, and they were always so high all the time. which, by the way, for that job was almost a qualification because it was boring. It was very boring, and it was much easier if they got high. But the problem was they would just space out and not show up constantly. And Aaron was the worst because he wouldn't get a substitute. He'd just forget to come. And he kept saying, "Well, no, I'm writing this play. I'm writing this play." He said, "Well, Aaron, you said times you can't. You never show up. We're gonna have to let you go." And of course, he was writing A Few Good Men. So,
how wild is that?
Wow. Just a huge giant hit play,
You tell them that, see, I'm finally giving you your shot.
I think Charlie froze.
Charlie's froze.
Right in the middle of like a really super.
I think Aaron Sorkin pissed off.
He's like,
what do we do? Tom, come on out. Hey, Tom, come on out.
Come on out and join us. Speaking of Staten Island Zone.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Technical difficulties.
I see. I'm hoping he comes back, but he might have just had a little glitch. But the good news is this will give me a moment to teach Richie how to edit something in post.
Richie, who was like, I don't even know how to turn on my computer.
I'll tell you a funny story about working at TKTS. Back in the 80s, it was cool because that was still Times Square was Times Square still.
It was. It's back. It's back, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah. I went to buy my Metro card, and there was a guy shooting up, leaning against the machine, shooting up, and I was like, "Oh, New York's back, baby." Anybody who misses the 80s, it's back.
Dude, I remember.
And people at the Met get stabbed. Two people that worked at the Met got stabbed. Be crass,
but you'd go running. You'd have to go pick up tickets. And there'd be a guy in a doorway of a building and in a suit with a suitcase, and he'd have his back to you. And you're like, what is this? And you realize that there was a woman on the other side who was pleasuring him. And
taking care of business.
Wow.
2 in the afternoon. Like you were like,
how did he fit it through the mail slot?
Yeah.
No returns.
A lot of young musicians would hang out by the lines and play music and trying, to make money. And there was this husband and wife, I can't remember their names, but they were very folky, and they were really young, and they were really sweet people.
Bob Dylan and Joan Baez.
But besides that, you also had these homeless guys hanging around trying to get money. So
ain't no sunshine when she gone.
We would become friends with the homeless guys because they were always there. Hey, Richie, hey, Smitty, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. So one night, this couple, the musicians, took 2 of the homeless guys to dinner.
Oh my gosh.
They took them to dinner. And the next day, Smitty comes up to me, he goes, Richie, we went to dinner last night with the couple, me and whoever the other guy's name was. And I go, you went to dinner? He goes, yeah. And he goes, I go, where'd you go? And they went to some, he goes, well, they're vegetarians. They don't eat meat. Restaurant. And I go, how was it? And he turns to the other guy. He goes, how was it? And the guy goes, we had salad, and more salad.
That's so funny.
Only in New York can, you know what I mean? Salad and more salad. Look, the job was up.
I'm back.
Salad.
Thanks for letting me visit, guys. See you guys in a little bit. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, my wife kicked out and I created a hotspot, which I've never done before, and I feel a little proud of myself.
All right.
Nice.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the theater.
I want that. I definitely want that to be hotspot. Absolutely.
So, Charlie, we're so deep in this, we've gotten nowhere yet. As far as we want to talk about your years in law, because you had some incredible moments in law. Were you a part? I hate to say this because I don't want to get. I don't know if weren't you involved with the Exxon Valdez in some way?
I was up in Valdez on the weekend of the accident when I was working for Sullivan and Cromwell, which is a big old white shoe law firm, as they call them in New York. We represented Exxon, and the board of directors, they had their own lawyers that were handling sort of the the on the ground stuff, but the board of directors wanted one of our firm to represent them because they knew they were going to get sued for the rest of their lives. So I got sent up to Alaska the weekend of the accident, which was,
oh my God, they knew it was coming.
Yeah, you really don't want to be. You don't want to let people know you're representing Exxon in Valdez when they've just spilled, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil or everything. It was a rough time, but it was. It was fascinating. So I wound up. I remember it was the only time in my life where I was in a conference room and a moose stuck its head in. Actually happened, not like the Captain Kangaroo moose, like a real moose.
The weird part is, it was in Staten Island.
I know.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Wound up meeting and interviewing all of the crew and the captain and all that, and it was fascinating. But that was just one of the cases that I was on at the time. They really worked you hard at the big firms.
And you were an entertainment lawyer for a while.
Yeah, well, I left there just to go to Gold, Farrell and Marks, which was a boutique entertainment litigation firm. And the way it works is all the record labels, which is the primary clients involved, they would hire all of the big firms just to make sure that they were conflicted out from representing the artists. So boutique firms would pop up to represent artists in their litigation with the big companies. And so, yeah, we started out. I represented Roger Daltrey and John Entwistle in their lawsuit, in their dispute with Pete Townsend over the rights to the musical of Tommy, which was then going on Broadway.
The best show. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. I represented.
What was the dispute? Explain. Can you talk a little?
I got it. I'm like, I never get phone calls. Here, we're going to decline that. There we go. The dispute there was over the.
Oh, you sound like my mom. I'll call my mom, and I'll be like, "Hi, how you doing?" She's like, "Hey, I'm lonely. Oh, I never hear from anybody. Hold on, I have another call."
Exactly. I only get calls when I'm on Zoom. I never get a call any other time.
But talk about the Tommy thing.
Well, that dispute was over. They had come to an agreement about the rights because Pete Townsend wrote like 90% of the music, but it was a grand rights issue, which grand rights is the overall concept, and it's become more and more popular in theater, particularly, to have this concept of grand rights. So for example, chorus line, the people who contribute to chorus line, they may not have put in a line of dialogue, but they were there for the development. There's an idea that it's, and the choreographer and the lighting, there's an idea that it's more than just a script or music on a page. So that was big. That was getting big at the time. And in Tommy, it was particularly I mean, it was particularly apt because the story, the plot, such as it was of Tommy, was something that they kind of developed in concert over time. There was no dialogue, but it was how this, in their own mind, how the songs related to one another, and and positioning them and moving them around. So the dispute was over that, and also they were using the Who's Tommy on every logo, and I think they felt that it was probably more use than they expected it to have. So, and they settled it, as all things, 90% of those things, and everyone went away happy, and they wound up touring again together because John Entwistle was like so late on his payments to his ex-wives.
Right.
So he's like, let's go on tour.
Yeah. But I did have a very funny encounter with Roger Daltrey and John Entwistle at this Euro Trash hotel up on the Upper East Side. I was going to interview them, and it was early. They came down to have breakfast, and they both looked really tired. And Daltrey said, "You got to forgive me. This has been a rough night. We're on this penthouse level, but the penthouse above us, Johnny Depp was in there, and he was having this enormous fight with some actress, and they were throwing things, and it went on we called the police. It went on like 3 or 4 hours." He said, I wanted to go up and say to them, look, guys, you're having a fight, we get it, but this is not, in the old days, this is how you wreck a hotel room. You take the TV and smash it into the mirror. You don't smash them separately. You got to be much more efficient. And that was
town.
That was that morning he had gotten arrested at the hotel, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
That was that morning.
That's the woman, right? That's the whole big issue with.
Well, I think this I thought this might have been Winona Ryder or somebody like that. It was an actress that he was dating at the time, and that I think that incident happened after that.
Okay.
But he did get arrested. But it was just crazy. So
how out of your mind do you have to be?
What's that?
How out of your mind do you have to be if you're disturbing the Who?
I know, exactly. Like, that's what I thought was the funniest thing, is like, they're disturbing these guys' sleep,
Yeah, Robert Daltrey's going, just chill out, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And represented, what's that?
No, go ahead.
I represented Prince a couple of times. I represented
for what?
DMX. Prince, there was a couple of contract disputes, but the big one was he had started these hotels. This was I was actually, believe it or not, in 1999.
Yeah,
just coincidentally, it was 1999.
What a time to be with Prince.
Yeah, and he was Tathgap then, at the time, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Which, by the way, was a business thing that it was really a business scheme that he did.
Yeah.
But at the time, he had started a bunch of nightclubs all over the world, but particularly one in South Beach. And he rebranded them. He put like this giant purple, the symbol on the tile floor, and it was they were very popular. The one in South Beach, he had bought an old theater from the Lowe's family, or he was renting it. He didn't buy it, and had reconfigured it. And this may sound ironic, but at the time, one of the things that was a major concern to him was that his brand was not associated with drugs, and so there was a bunch of raids in the place because people were selling drugs in it, and he finally decided it's not worth it, I'm going to close it down. But he was still responsible for the lease payments because he had put a personal guarantee on it, so he was paying it for like 2 or 3 years, it's somehow $30,000-$40,000 a month, whatever it was, and finally it occurred to him that probably he should try to get out of it. But the personal guarantee went for the length of the lease. So, and there was really no argument. I just had to irritate them into settling, which is what I did, and we finally settled. The funniest part of it is that he didn't have to pay any money, but he had to put what they call a line. He had to have a letter of credit or some equivalent where you have assets in a bank up to a certain amount, and if the person that they got to take over the lease defaulted, the Lowe's could automatically go to the bank with this letter of credit and get the payment that was owed to them without having to go to litigation. It was an easy way to settle it because it was a popular space. They were going to re-rent it. This was just sort of like a guarantee in the background. But he had to have money in a bank. And because it was 1999, he had taken out all of his money in all of the banks, converted them to gold bars, and buried them in the back of Paisley Park. So in order to settle the case, we had to have Prince go with a shovel and dig up some gold, a sufficient amount of gold to convert into the money in the bank and put it in the bank to settle the case. Absolutely.
So cool.
Did he do that because of Y2K?
Yeah.
Y2K. He thought the banks were going to fail.
Oh my goodness.
And he was into astrology and numerology, so it's not a surprise. Yeah.
That is so funny.
You think Prince spent that whole year going, I know what year it is. I know.
Oh yeah, right?
Oh, he had a good year. That was a good year for Prince.
I guess you do have to be rich.
Oh, yeah.
What was he like? How unique a person was he? That like did he? Obviously, you were in rooms with him, right? You were in
my encounters with him were very low key. It was all business. He was a very, very good businessman. He had really creative ideas. Yeah. I mean, he could have, if left to his own devices, he probably could have come up with digital streaming eventually. The whole thing with not using Prince anymore is Warner Chappell wouldn't let him out of his. Warner Chappell signs these horrible performing rights and mechanical rights licenses when you're young, and then they milk all your royalties for years. And he wanted out of it. They wouldn't let him out. He said, "Well, that's fine, but I'm not going to be Prince anymore. I'm going to change my name, and I'm not going to support any of those albums." They said, "Yeah, good luck with that." So he did, and he started cranking out music like crazy because he had an enormous amount of music. So he would sell them, and he had this he bought the little CD cases, and put the little, and he would personally put these things in and sell them out. So he was selling far fewer CDs, obviously, but he was making $9 out of 10 on those, whereas you're making 10 cents out of 10 on the ones that Warner Chappell had. And so it worked. I mean, it was just, I think he got tired of it, but eventually he wore Warner Chappell down. They let him out of his agreement. He got his rights back, and then about a year later sold them back to Warner Chappell, which I think is hilarious, and it made a fortune.
Oh my God, that's
so
awesome.
That whole thing where everybody's saying what a nut he is writing Slave, and it was incredibly smart business strategy, just very creative.
Yes.
Did Mr. McGee ever come after him for money? Who ran the Five and Dime?
Raspberry Beret. I love I love that you know the lyrics.
I think that was. I think he had local counsel for that.
Charlie, before we go, I never told the lawyer joke, but hold on, I lost it. Hold on.
Hold on.
I got it here somewhere. Hang on.
Charlie, we have to have you come to the reading series that Richie and I are putting together. Absolutely. We're letting writers get to workshop their stuff with professional actors, and we've been having a ball doing it, and love to have you involved as much as you'd want to be involved.
What's your next show at Ghostlight? Yeah, you have to come in the city and come to some of the readings. They're really done. But tell us a little bit about Ghostlight, and then I'll give you the joke.
I'm doing Sweat is our next show. It opens March 24 for 2 weekends. And it's got a great cast, really fun. It's Lynn Nottage won the Pulitzer for the play, and it tells a great story about these workers in Pennsylvania who are friends for years, go to an old bar, hang out, and then the union starts to they have to go on strike. One of the people gets promoted. And it kind of ruins the friendship in an interesting way.
This sounds great.
Yeah,
this is like right up my alley of like what I like.
Yeah.
Where can we?
Sorry, Mark.
No go. Plug tickets.
Yeah. Where can we get tickets?
Facebook, Ghostlight Productions, Ghostlight Players, easy to get. Also, On the Stage is our ticket platform, and it's very easy to do. Type it On the Stage and Ghostlight, and you'll get right to us.
Cool. What were you saying?
I'm a huge fan of like blue collar theater.
Yeah,
like right? I love a good gritty, blue collar feeling play, because everybody thinks the theater has to be so sophisticated, but there's also an element of grit that you can do that you can't get on screen. Like you can watch an action movie, but when it's live in front of you and there's the grit and the fight and the spit coming out of the person's mouth as they're yelling at each other and There's nothing better than that. I love that stuff.
You got to go see American Buffalo. It's coming back with Lawrence.
Yes.
Yes. I was just gonna say that, and some of my favorite plays, like True West, when they did True West.
That's
Broadway.
what made me decide to go into theater instead of go to LA and go to film acting school. Was True West.
They did a production like I think it was like 18 years ago, but it was Philip Seymour Hoffman and John C. Reilly.
Yeah,
and they would switch roles every night, and so I went twice so I could see them both, and I met them both. Because it was Circle in the Square, because you have to walk out of Circle in the Square through the audience. So we kind of waited. I mean, I was so much younger. It was like 20 years ago, 18 years ago. And they were so nice, so shy. Both of them were so shy. And I just was like, you guys.
Magnolia didn't come out yet. They weren't.
Yeah, they weren't huge stars. But I mean, they were stars to me. I was like, you guys are incredibly talented. You're so good. Blushing. Like, so nice, though. But they were amazing. Can you imagine knowing both those roles and switching each night?
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah,
oh my God. I can't even imagine being able to do that. Like,
I'll tell you a story about TKTS. Burn This was on Broadway with John Malkovich.
Oh my God.
Right. And Joan Allen.
And Joan Allen, yeah. And this is probably, I don't know, 1990, Charlie? I don't remember exactly the year, but Pete Maravich, the basketball star, had just died of a heart attack suddenly. It was sad. He was young. And an old lady went up to the window and said to the guy at the booth, "What's Burn This?" And he said, "Oh, it's a play with John Malkovich." And she said, "Is that the basketball player who just died?" And he's like, and without like missing a beat, the guy just goes, "That was Pete Maravich, ma'am. This guy's alive."
Can you imagine? No, that's a dead basketball player. When I first moved here, the first weekend I was here, it was Labor Day weekend of '99, and we waited in line at TKTS to get tickets to a show. And you know, I don't know if you guys used to give information about shows, like while you were waiting. Like you were keeping people in line.
They had shills for shows who did that.
Yeah. So there was a guy that was telling us, he's like, you should go see this scary play. It's called Voices in the Dark. And I was like, I don't know. But they were only $15. So we went to see Voices in the Dark, and it was Judith Ivey, who was the star of it. It was the scariest freaking play I've ever seen in my life. I don't think I've ever seen a scary play on Broadway again. It scared the hell out of us. Like, and my sister stayed over because she had driven me down. We closed the door because I had a door in my room. We closed the door halfway through the night because I was like, I hear something out there. It was so scary, but it was so good too. It was really good.
Have you ever seen Poltergeist the musical? No.
No. That does not exist.
There was Carrie. Carrie was a musical.
That I remember. And I saw it off Broadway about 5 years ago. They did a revival of it.
They did. You're right. Yeah. Listen, Charlie, this hour flew. My God. Right, Mark?
Yeah, I know. It's like, I can't believe it's already 10 past.
Mark, Vicky, you got anything you want to plug before we go?
I have a Ukraine benefit that was supposed to be this Saturday, but that ice storm, it's now this coming Saturday.
Okay, yeah, I lost the gig over that. That's funny. Tom, come on out, Tom.
Yeah. Saturday, I'll be in Rovester Ice Garden outside of Pittsburgh. If anybody in the Pittsburgh area is watching, you guys can come check it out. Other than that, I'm going to be out next week filming, so I won't be gigging.
Excellent.
Cool. Tom, you got anything?
I got a ton going on, so I have a lot of fundraisers that are coming up in the near future. On March 26th, we have the Joseph Maffio Foundation over on Staten Island, not too far from me, Charlie. We're at the Hilton raising money for the NICU unit at the Staten Island Hospital. Should be a great event. We're looking at like 300-400 people. There's a great poker tournament going on in one area and then a full casino night in another. So if you guys would like to come out and join me, you can find that at the Joseph Maffio, Maffeo Foundation. And yeah, would love to see you guys out there with me.
Tom's so good at that, isn't he? I'm the worst at that. Tom,
he has the voice for it too. It's like,
the DJ.
Like
I'm waiting for him to announce backward skate only. Backward skate only.
The poster of where I am Friday, because I'm like, Friday I'm going to be on Route 17 somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best I got.
Check all your local comedy clubs for Richie Byrne if he'll be coming to your town.
No, I'm doing a great show at Hopewell. Mill Creek Caterers, and on 8 o'clock. So if you're in the Hopewell Junction area, come out and see me.
Wait, when's that?
Friday night.
I live by there. Maybe I'll come down and see you if I'm free.
Oh, really? Am I that far? That's a ride.
Am I that far away?
I thought it was like in Westchester.
Oh, maybe it's a different Hopewell. There's a Hopewell Theater in New Jersey that's
no, this is in New York.
Oh,
there you go.
You're scared.
Saturday, you guys, I'm doing 2 shows. So you can come to the Ukraine benefit, which is in Long Branch, New Jersey, at this place called 10 PRL. It's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and all benefits the Ukraine. Or you can come to a free show called the UG Comedy Show, and that's at Adoro Lay, and tickets are on Eventbrite, and they're free.
Cool.
That's at 9:30.
Very cool.
So, and Charlie, thank you so much. We got to have you back because you were tremendous.
Sure.
As usual.
This was fun.
And looking forward to seeing the play. And I didn't do the joke. Hang on.
Yeah, let's close on the joke. We close on the joke.
Okay.
There you go.
What's the difference between a good lawyer and a bad lawyer?
What's that?
I don't know.
A bad lawyer might let a case drag on for several years. A good lawyer knows how to make it last even longer. You've been watching Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling.
Night.